Sam Carter never planned to stop. He'd been riding for hours, maybe days, letting the desert wind scrape the noise out of his mind the same way it always had. But when he reached the old crossroads and saw the bar leaning into the darkness like a memory, refusing to die, something inside him twisted. The neon sign flickered weakly, painting the gravel in tired blues and reds, and right there, parked exactly where it shouldn't be, was his bike. The same bike he'd buried under another name, another life, far from the hands of the brotherhood he once loved. For a long moment, Sam just stared at it. The model was right. The custom tank was right. Even the dent on the left side, earned the night everything went wrong, was there like an echo carved into metal. But Sam hadn't parked it there. Sam hadn't touched that bike in years, which meant someone else had brought it. Someone who wanted him to stop, look, remember. Someone who knew what that bike meant. The desert night pushed against his back like a warning. The smell of old whiskey and dust leaked from the building, carrying memories he'd spent half a lifetime trying to outrun. Brotherhood, blood, lies, a code broken on purpose, and a friend, no, a brother, who vanished the night Sam walked away. His pulse slowed into something cold and steady, the kind of rhythm a man feels before stepping into his past, with no guarantee he'll step back out. He walked toward the bar door, boots crunching the gravel that once held the best years of his life. As his hand touched the handle, the world went quiet. Sam didn't need to go inside to know. Someone was waiting for him. Someone who had ridden his bike there on purpose. Someone who wanted the truth to come out tonight. Some stories don't begin with a gunshot, a betrayal, or a fight in the dark. Some stories begin long before that, on quiet nights when a man makes a choice he thinks he'll never have to face again. This is one of those nights, a night where the past doesn't knock. It just turns on an old neon sign and waits. If you've ever walked into a place knowing you weren't the same person who walked out years earlier, then you already understand the weight of the story you're about to hear. Before we go inside that bar with Sam Carter, take a breath. Let the world around you quiet down. Picture the desert wind brushing against cracked pavement. Picture a lone motorcycle rumbling in the distance. Picture a man who's been carrying guilt the way others carry scars, visible only when the light hits it just right. Tonight, his past has pulled him home, and whether he's ready or not, the truth is sitting on the other side of that door. If this is your first time here, welcome to Brotherhood Roads, a place where stories ride on gasoline, memory, and the codes men swear they'll never break. Here, we don't rush the silence, and we don't soften the truth. We tell it the way riders remember it, raw, loyal, and carved straight out of the road. If that kind of storytelling hits you somewhere deep, consider subscribing. It helps keep these roads alive. Hit the like button too, not for the algorithm, but so I know you're out there riding your own highway while you listen. These stories travel farther when the right people gather around them. And before we step inside that bar with Sam, drop a comment telling me your city and country. This road is long, and I want to know where you're joining the ride from. Now, let's walk through that door. Sam Carter stood at the edge of the parking lot, the gravel crunching beneath his boots as the last light of sunset bled across the desert sky. The old bar looked the same as the night he'd walked away, leaning into the wind, neon sign flickering like it was trying to stay alive. His bike waited outside the entrance, parked exactly where he used to leave it. Someone had placed it there on purpose. Someone wanted him to see it. And as Sam stared at the familiar shape of the machine that had once carried him through every kind of hell, he felt a cold realization settle in his bones. The past wasn't just inside the bar. It had already stepped out to meet him. He approached slowly, each step measured. The scent of dust and gasoline filled the air, mixing with the faint echo of music leaking through the bar's thin walls. Sam reached out and touched the handlebars of the bike. his bike. The leather grips were worn exactly where his hands used to rest. No one else could have aged them that way. Someone had kept this machine alive all these years, someone who knew he'd eventually return. It felt like a message, carved not in words, but in chrome and steel. You can't outrun what you left behind. Sam exhaled, steadying his pulse. He wasn't here to be sentimental. He wasn't here to relive the ghosts of who he used to be. He was here because something heavier than regret had pulled him back. A truth he'd been avoiding for years, a truth whispered through miles of empty highway until he couldn't ignore it anymore. Tonight, he would face it, no matter who waited behind that door. He stepped onto the wooden porch, boots thudding against weathered boards. The neon sign buzzed overhead, illuminating the dust in the air like tiny sparks. For a moment, Sam hesitated. Not out of fear, he had lost that a long time ago, but because he understood what crossing this threshold meant. Once he entered, there would be no pretending the past was dead. No pretending Clay, Marcus, Reese, and the rest of them were just memories fading into distant miles. The bar was a graveyard of promises, and Sam had come back to dig one up. He pushed the door open. A wave of warm, stale air rolled over him, heavy with cigarette smoke and spilled whiskey. Conversations dipped, glasses paused midway to lips. A few men turned, eyes narrowing in recognition, even if they didn't believe what they were seeing. Sam Carter wasn't a ghost, but he might as well have been. In this place, he was a cautionary tale that had walked back into the room. Sam stepped inside fully, letting the door swing shut behind him. The jukebox hummed in the corner, playing a low, bluesy tune that felt too calm for the tension that now clung to the air. The bartender, a thick-shouldered man with arms like railroad beams, froze when he recognized him. Sam watched a flicker of something, shock, resentment, maybe both, cross the man's face before he looked away and pretended to polish a glass. Sam didn't speak. He moved deeper into the bar, boots echoing on the wooden floor. Every shadow felt familiar. Every table held a memory he wished he could have burned out of existence. He walked past a dartboard scarred by 1,000 arguments, past a wall where the old Brotherhood patch used to hang before someone tore it down. This place wasn't welcoming him. It was judging him. He reached the counter and rested his hands on its surface. The bartender approached reluctantly and poured a whiskey without being asked. Sam didn't grab it. He kept his gaze locked on the mirror behind the bottles, watching the room through reflections he trusted more than faces. That's when he noticed it, a booth in the back, dimly lit, occupied by a silhouette sitting just beyond the warm edge of the lamps. A figure he knew, a figure who had been waiting. Sam felt the old instinct rise in him, the one that told him when trouble had a pulse. He turned just enough to face the booth fully, his jaw tightened, his heartbeat slowed. The air seemed to stretch thin around him, like the world was holding its breath. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone had planned this night down to the last detail. And as the figure shifted in the darkness, Sam understood one thing with chilling clarity. The past wasn't calling him back. It was summoning him. And the man in that booth was the first answer he'd have to face. The figure in the booth didn't move when Sam approached. He sat with his shoulders squared, hands clasped loosely on the table, the dim overhead lamp revealing only enough of his face to hint at recognition. Sam stopped a few feet away, allowing the silence to stretch. Silence was how bikers measured truth. What a man didn't say often meant more than what he did. The room around them faded until only two men existed, one standing, one waiting, and the past coiled between them like barbed wire. "Sit," the man finally said. His voice was low, steady, unshaken. Sam knew that tone. It had commanded him once, guided him. It had also been the last voice he heard before everything fell apart. Sam slid into the booth, never breaking eye contact. As the shadows shifted, the familiar features sharpened, the strong jaw, the late-night exhaustion buried behind steady eyes. The faint scar near the temple earned in a fight Sam never forgot. It was Rhys Younger, a brother once, a ghost now. "You made a mistake coming back," Rhys said quietly. No bitterness, no hostility, just cold certainty. Sam didn't answer immediately. He studied Rhys's face instead, reading the fatigue, the tension, the restraint. Behind all of it, Sam sensed something else. Not anger, not betrayal, fear. Sam leaned forward slightly. "Whose mistake?" he asked. "Yours or mine?" Rhys's jaw flexed. "Both. You returning puts things in motion that should have stayed buried." He glanced toward the bar entrance briefly, eyes scanning the shadows. Too many ears in this place, and too many people with something to lose. Sam's patience thinned. "Then start talking," Rhys exhaled slowly, lifting his glass but not drinking from it. "You left the Brotherhood at the worst possible moment. After you walked out, the whole place cracked. Clay tried to hold the pieces together, but the more he tried, the more they slipped through his fingers. Men stopped trusting each other. Fights started for no reason. People vanished. Roots were compromised. And all of it, every single thing, traced back to one night." Sam felt a pulse of dread move through him. "Say it." Rhys's eyes locked onto his. "The night you walked away, someone broke the code." Sam inhaled sharply. Not out of guilt, he'd carried that weight long enough, but because hearing the words spoken aloud felt like reopening an old wound. No scar had closed properly. "I didn't break the code, Rhys." "I know," Rhys replied immediately. He didn't hesitate. He didn't doubt. He didn't flinch. Sam blinked. "Then why say I made a mistake coming back?" "Because Clay doesn't believe that anymore," Rhys answered. "He's rewritten the story in his head. In his version, you were the crack that let everything fall apart. In his version, you're the reason Marcus died." The name hit Sam like a punch. Marcus. Loyal, steady, honorable Marcus, who always stood between rage and reason, whose word had weight heavy enough to stop wars before they started. Sam's stomach tightened. "Clay told you that?" Rhys shook his head. "Clay didn't have to. He's been acting on it for years. Every decision he makes now starts from the assumption that you're the unfinished business he needs to tie off." Sam leaned back, absorbing every word. "Clay asked for me," he muttered. "He wanted me here." "No," Rhys said firmly. "Clay wanted you isolated, off guard, close enough that the people he trusts could deal with you if things went wrong." Rhys paused, then added, "And they will go wrong." Sam's hands curled slightly against the table. "So tell me what happened the night Marcus died." Rhys's face hardened. He looked down at the untouched glass in front of him, then pushed it aside. "Not here. Not in this bar." He lifted his eyes. "Someone's watching us right now." Sam frowned, instinct sharpening. "Who?" Rhys didn't answer with words. He shifted his gaze toward the mirror behind the bar, toward a reflection of a man pretending to drink, pretending not to look their way, pretending not to listen. Sam felt the change in the air. The room had turned. Rhys's voice dropped to a whisper. "Stand up slowly. Walk toward the hallway. Don't run. Don't look back. They're not here for me." Sam's pulse steadied, dropping into that cold, controlled rhythm he hadn't felt in years. Rhys swallowed hard. "They're here for you." Sam didn't turn his head, didn't shift his shoulders, didn't let even a breath betray what he now knew. Years on the road had taught him one thing above all else. When danger enters a room, the first man to panic is the first man to fall. He rose slowly from the booth, pushing his palms against the table as if his bones ached from age rather than imminent violence. Rhys followed a heartbeat later, sliding out with the same calm. But Sam caught the twitch in his jaw, the rigid tension humming beneath the surface. They walked toward the narrow hallway beside the jukebox. Conversations softened. A chair scraped somewhere in the corner. A bottle clinked too sharply against a bar counter. Small sounds, but Sam heard every single one. He knew a room shifting from indifferent to predatory. It was in the air now, thick, charged, waiting. As soon as they slipped into the hallway's dim light, Reese grabbed Sam's arm and pulled him against the wall. "Listen," Reese whispered, breath tight. "If we get separated, head toward the back alley and follow the fence line east. There's a service road. Stay low. Don't stop." Sam's voice didn't rise above a murmur. "You think they'll try something here? They didn't come to talk," Reese hissed. "And they're not Clay's men. They're hired muscle. The kind Clay uses when he doesn't want fingerprints on a job." Footsteps echoed behind them, slow, heavy, deliberate. Sam's heart didn't race, but his senses sharpened into razor clarity. He scanned the kitchen door ahead, rusted, half open, swinging slightly with the pull of the desert wind seeping through its frame. It was their exit. If they moved fast enough, Reese pushed the door open and cold night air rushed in. They stepped into the back of the bar, where discarded crates and dented metal bins cast jagged shadows under a flickering security light. Sam followed Reese toward the alley, boots crunching quietly across broken glass and gravel, but just as they reached the halfway point, a voice called out behind them, "Carter!" They froze. Sam turned slowly. 3 men stood at the alley entrance, silhouettes blended with shadows. One held a pistol lowered casually at his side. Another cracked his knuckles, eyes locked on Sam with predatory focus. The third leaned against the brick wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Reese took a slight step forward. "We're not doing this here," he growled. The man with the pistol tilted his head. "Doesn't matter where. Clay said the road ends tonight." Sam felt something shift inside him. Not fear, not shock, something colder. Resolve. The kind of resolve a man finds only when he finally sees the truth without excuses. "Clay sent you?" Sam asked, voice steady. The man shrugged. "Does it matter?" Sam didn't answer with words. He stepped forward, one slow step, then another. He looked almost relaxed, almost careless, but every muscle in his body coiled tight, ready. Reese's voice was barely a breath. "Sam, don't!" Sam ignored him and kept walking until the muzzle of the pistol was pointed directly at his chest. "Get out of my way," Sam said. The man blinked, confused by the calm. "You're not walking out of this, Carter." Sam's jaw clenched. "Then you should have brought more men." The man adjusted his grip, and that's when Sam moved. He reached for the nearest crate and hurled it sideways, smashing it into the second man's legs. Reese lunged simultaneously, tackling the third man into the wall. The gun fired once, sparks exploding off a metal bin as the bullet ricocheted into the dark. Sam grabbed the shooter's wrist, twisting hard. The gun clattered to the ground. A fist flew toward Sam's jaw, but he ducked, delivering a brutal elbow to the man's ribs. The man gasped, bending forward, just enough for Sam to slam his forehead into the man's nose. Blood spurted. The man collapsed. Reese knocked his opponent down with a sharp knee to the stomach. "Move!" he barked. Sam grabbed the gun off the ground and tossed it into a dumpster, then turned toward the alley's end. A low rumble rose behind them. Engines. 2 motorcycles. Headlights flared to life at the far end of the back lot. Reese swore under his breath. "They've got backup." Sam's voice dropped. "Then we're out of time." He grabbed Reese by the arm and pulled him behind the building, boots skidding across gravel as the 2 motorcycle engines roared toward them like hunting dogs released from the leash. They had escaped the bar, but the road had just become a battlefield, and the next move would decide whether they lived long enough to face Clay. The 2 motorcycles tore across the gravel with the fury of beasts unleashed, engines growling loud enough to shake the rusted siding of the bar. Sam and Reese sprinted along the side of the building, the harsh desert wind whipping dust into their eyes. The alley funneled them into a narrow stretch behind an abandoned storage shack, barely wide enough for 2 men to move through side by side. The roar behind them grew louder, closer, hungrier. Reese stumbled, catching himself against the wall. "Keep going," he barked, but Sam grabbed his arm and yanked him forward. There was no time to argue. The bikes were close enough now that Sam could hear the crunch of their tires over broken bottles and loose gravel. Headlights carved long, trembling shadows across the alley walls. They broke out onto a wider stretch behind the building, where a sagging chain-link fence separated the property from a barren service road. Sam didn't hesitate. He lowered his shoulder and rammed the fence. Metal screeched as it crumpled, snapping free from its bolts. Reese followed, limping but determined, slipping through the gap a second before the riders reached the opening. Sam looked back just in time to see one of the motorcycles skid sideways, the rider leaning hard to avoid plowing straight into the collapsing fence. The other rider wasn't as coordinated. His front wheel caught the tangle of metal, sending him flipping forward in a violent arc. The crash echoed across the empty road, but the first rider recovered instantly, and he was coming. Reese pointed to an old, low ridge of rock about 100 yards ahead. "Up there!" he shouted. "If we make the slope, he can't hit us with speed." Sam nodded and ran harder, boots hammering against the cracked asphalt. The wind cut across his face, drying the sweat already dripping down his temple. Behind him, the single remaining motorcycle accelerated, engine screaming as it tore through the scattered debris of the fallen fence. They reached the base of the slope just as the rider closed the distance. Sam grabbed Reese's jacket and shoved him upward onto the ridge. Reese clawed forward, breath sharp with pain. Sam planted his boots and turned just as the motorcycle surged up behind him. The rider aimed to clip Sam's legs and throw him off the incline. Sam stepped right, just an inch, just enough. The rider shot past him, unable to correct in time. The motorcycle slammed into the rocky edge, spraying shards of metal and dust. The rider tumbled sideways, rolling down the slope with a brutal thud. The engine sputtered and died, its scream fading into a sickening rattle. Sam climbed the rest of the ridge and crouched beside Reese, chest heaving. Below them, the desert stretched empty and silent. The only movement was the faint twitch of the fallen rider's arm. "That was too close," Reese muttered, wincing as he pressed a hand to his ribs. Sam scanned the horizon, adrenaline burning through his bloodstream like wildfire. "You still think Clay didn't mean for this to happen?" Reese didn't answer. His silence was enough. Sam helped him to his feet, and together they followed the ridge east toward the service road. The moon hung overhead like a half-burned lantern, casting cold light over everything it touched. For the first time that night, the roar of engines faded completely. The threat behind them was gone, temporarily, but the danger ahead had only sharpened. Reese finally spoke as they walked. His voice was quieter now, stripped of the earlier tension. "There's something you need to understand about Clay." Sam didn't look at him. "I understand enough." "No," Reese insisted. "You understand the man he used to be, not the man he is now. After you left, he started making choices no brother should make. Deals with people who don't ride for loyalty, only for money and blood." Sam's jaw tightened. "Marcus tried to warn me." Reese nodded. "Marcus found out Clay was meeting with smugglers in secret. He tried to gather proof. Clay found out. And instead of facing him like a brother, Clay made sure Marcus never had the chance to speak." A cold silence followed. Sam felt something inside him fracture, not break, but shift. Something old, something he thought had died when he rode away years ago. Now it came back, sharp and merciless. "And now," Sam said, voice low, "he's trying to bury me the same way." Reese stopped walking and met Sam's eyes. "Clay knows you're the only one who can expose him, and he knows the brothers would listen to you before they'd ever listen to him." Sam didn't hesitate. "Then we don't wait." Reese swallowed hard, his expression tightening with both fear and resolve. "Sam, if we go after Clay, we go after someone who's already decided we're dead men, Sam turned toward the faint glow on the horizon, the direction of Clay's safe house. Then it's time to remind him what kind of men we really are. And with that, they walked into the night, toward the reckoning waiting on the other side of the desert. They followed the ridge until the ground leveled out into a narrow service road, cracked asphalt, patches of sand scattered by the desert wind, and long shadows stretching under the moonlight. Sam moved steadily, but Reese lagged with each step, clutching his ribs harder every time the pain flared. Sam slowed his pace without saying anything. He didn't have to. Reese would have done the same. For years, the road had taught them how to hold each other up without ever calling it help. "We can't go straight to the safe house from here," Reese muttered, steadying himself against a mile marker post. "Clay's got lookouts in both directions. We need a back line." Sam scanned the dark horizon. The desert stretched endlessly, silent except for the hum of distant insects and the faint whistle of wind slicing through the rocks. "There's an old mining trail about a mile south," Sam said. "If Clay didn't block it off yet, it'll take us behind his perimeter." Reese nodded. "Then that's where we go." They walked in silence for several minutes, each step pushing them deeper into the desert night. Sam kept his eyes sharp. Every shadow looked like a threat, every rock formation like a place where a rifle could be waiting. Clay wasn't sloppy. If he wanted Sam gone, he wouldn't leave open windows. As they approached the mining trail, Reese spoke again, his voice low, thoughtful, almost resigned. "You know, Clay wasn't always like this." Sam didn't respond immediately. "He knew," Reese continued. "He believed in us, in the Brotherhood, in the code. He would have died for us back then." Sam's jaw tightened. "People change," Reese shook his head. "Clay didn't change. He broke. There's a difference." That landed harder than Sam expected. He knew broken men. He knew the look in their eyes. He'd seen it in his own reflection more than once. But Clay's break had turned into something else, something sharp and dangerous. The kind of break that turns inward first, then explodes outward at the first excuse. Sam exhaled. "Marcus saw it." Reese nodded. "He tried to fix it, tried to save Clay. But Clay, he saw betrayal where there was only concern." Reese stopped walking, turning to face Sam. "You leaving didn't break Clay. It convinced him everyone else would leave too." Sam blinked. "So he started pushing people out before they could walk away." Exactly. It made a painful kind of sense. Clay's twisted loyalty, his paranoia, his deals with the smugglers, his desire to control every rider, every route, every secret. He wasn't guarding the Brotherhood. He was guarding himself from losing it. The trail finally came into view, a narrow dirt path, snaking between boulders and dead brush. Sam crouched, scanning the ground for tracks. Fresh tire marks cut through the dust. Wide, heavy, multiple vehicles. Reese cursed softly. "He's already moved half his crew to the safe house." Sam stood. "Then we're running out of time." They followed the trail deeper into the mining grounds, the shadows growing thicker, the silence heavier. Abandoned machinery rusted under the moonlight, twisted metal and broken gears littering the area like remnants of an old war. The air shifted, colder, sharper, as if the land itself knew danger was close. Reese slowed again, breathing harder. Sam stepped beside him. "Sit for a minute." Reese shook his head. "We don't stop." "Not now." But his legs were shaking. Sam grabbed his arm, lowering him gently against a boulder. "We're no good to Marcus if we drop dead before we get there." Reese looked up sharply, eyes narrowing. "Marcus is dead, Sam." Sam held his gaze. "Then we owe him more than rushing into a slaughter." Reese didn't argue again. He leaned back, breathing through the pain. After a few moments, he glanced at Sam's hands, still gripping Marcus's patch. "You never stopped carrying him," Reese murmured. Sam looked down at the fabric, the worn threads, the faded emblem. "He never stopped carrying us." They stayed there for a moment, two men surrounded by ruins, holding onto the only piece of the past that still felt real. Rhys finally pushed himself up. There's no going back after this. Sam stood as well. There hasn't been going back since I walked into that bar. Rhys gave a humorless half smile. Fair point. They followed the final stretch of the trail. As they reached the top of a low rise overlooking a narrow valley, Sam stopped dead. Below them, floodlights glowed against a cluster of old mining shacks, reinforced with new metal sheets and guarded by men armed and alert. Clay's safe house. Every exit blocked, every approach watched. Rhys's breath caught. He's ready for a war. Sam's voice of steel cut through the night. Then we'll give him one. Because this wasn't just the end of a story, it was the end of a brotherhood and the beginning of the truth. The valley felt colder than the rest of the desert, as if the air itself recoiled from the violence waiting inside the safe house. Sam crouched behind a jagged slab of rock, eyes fixed on the glowing compound below. Floodlights swept across the ground in slow, deliberate arcs. Men patrolled in predictable patterns, but there were too many of them, too armored, too organized. This wasn't the brotherhood Sam remembered. This was Clay's new kingdom, built on fear, strengthened by lies. Rhys lay beside him, breathing unevenly, hand clamped over his ribs. He's doubled the guard, he whispered. Last time I was here, there were half that number. Sam didn't answer. His jaw tightened as he watched a pair of armed men drag a wooden crate toward the central shack. The same shack that used to store spare parts when they were kids tuning up their first bikes. Now it looked like a bunker. Reinforced steel plates, barred windows, a new metal door bolted over the old wooden one. Clay had turned nostalgia into fortification. Rhys glanced sideways at Sam. You still think going down there is the play? Yes, Sam said without hesitation. Rhys let out a strained laugh. You say that like you've already made peace with dying tonight. Sam's eyes didn't leave the compound. I made peace with dying the night Marcus did. Rhys's breathing stilled. He studied Sam's face. The calm, the resolve, the cold determination carved by guilt and long roads. You know there's a chance Clay didn't kill him the way you think. Sam's stare sharpened. What do you mean? Rhys swallowed, choosing his words with painful precision. Clay pushed Marcus into a corner. Yeah, but Marcus wasn't the type to die without trying to tell someone the truth. Someone saw what happened. Someone Clay's been silencing. Sam turned fully toward him now. Who? Rhys hesitated, long enough for Sam to see the truth. You, Sam said quietly. Rhys looked away, jaw clenching. Clay found out I knew more than I should have. That's why I left the Brotherhood. That's why I've been hiding, why I couldn't reach out to you until now. Sam's breath caught in his chest, not with surprise, but with the impact of understanding. Rhys hadn't been avoiding him out of resentment. He'd been running for his life, running because Marcus's death wasn't just an accident of Clay's paranoia. It was murder, and Rhys was the last witness. Sam exhaled slowly, the weight settling deeper. You should have told me the moment we met in that bar. Rhys shook his head. And what? Get you killed before we even had a chance? No. You needed to see it with your own eyes. You needed to remember who Clay has become. Sam turned back to the compound. He didn't speak, but something changed in the way he breathed, in the posture of his shoulders. Rhys recognized that shift. It was the silent vow of a man who had just chosen his path, even if that path cut straight through hell. Down below, a truck engine rumbled to life. Two men hopped in, pulling away from the safe house and heading toward the east exit, a brief crack in the perimeter. Sam tracked the movement carefully. We go now, Sam said. Rhys's head snapped toward him. Are you out of your mind? We don't even know how many are inside that shack. Exactly, Sam replied. We need answers, not guesses. And Clay won't let us get close again if we wait. Rhys groaned, bracing himself against the rock as he stood. Sam, If we walk into that place, we're not walking out. Sam slid Marcus's patch into the pocket of his jacket, pressing it over his heart. Then we walk in anyway. The two men descended the ridge, moving low between the rocks, timing their steps with the sweep of the floodlights. Sam chose the western approach, steeper, quieter, hidden behind a line of rusted mining carts that had sat untouched for decades. Rhys followed, gritting his teeth against each jolt of pain. Halfway down, the lights shifted. Someone shouted. A flare burst into the sky. Rhys stopped cold. They know! Sam grabbed his arm. Move! The valley erupted in motion. Men spilled out of the safe house. Engines roared awake. Flashlights cut through the night like spears. Sam's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. Rhys, listen to me. Whatever happens, you keep moving. You don't stop. You don't look back. Rhys's eyes widened. Sam, Marcus died because he stood alone. Sam's grip tightened. We don't repeat that tonight. Gunshots cracked overhead, ricocheting off the rocks. The desert lit up with fire and fury. Sam pulled Rhys toward the shadows as the safe house erupted in violence, and the final truth waited inside, demanding to be faced. The gunfire faded behind them, swallowed by the black spine of the canyon as Sam dragged Rhys deeper into the shadows. The desert wind howled like a warning, whipping sand across their faces, but Sam didn't stop, not until the last echo of footsteps dissolved into silence. Only then did he release Rhys's arm and turn back toward the distant glow of the safe house. Flames flickered against the sky. Men shouted orders. Clay's kingdom was shaking, and Sam felt the truth settle like iron in his chest. There was no going back now. Whatever he had been before tonight, Brother Ryder Exile was gone. What remained was purpose, sharp, unyielding, inevitable. Rhys leaned against a boulder, panting, blood dark on his shirt. Sam, you can't face him alone. Sam didn't look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on the safe house, on the last place Marcus had breathed, the place where brotherhood had become a lie. I'm not facing him, Sam said quietly. I'm ending this. He reached into his jacket and pulled out Marcus's patch, brushing dust from the worn threads. Under the moonlight, the fabric looked almost alive, like a memory refusing to fade. Sam pressed it against his chest, right over his heartbeat. Clay built everything on this, he murmured, on what this used to mean, but he forgot the one thing you can't bury. Rhys swallowed. What? Sam finally turned, his voice steady as steel. The truth! Sam stepped out from the canyon shadow and onto the open road, the safe house burning in the distance like a beacon for reckoning. The night air trembled around him. Every step carried the weight of roads ridden, brothers lost, promises broken, and one final debt still unpaid. He didn't look back. Not at Rhys, not at the past, not at the ghosts that had followed him this far. Ahead lay only fire, betrayal, and the man he once called brother. And Sam walked toward all of it, ready to finish what Clay began.